life of a high school student in modern Japan called Haruto. He seems to be a very happy boy, but deep down he harbors a painful secret. Several years ago, a game called Union was announced in Japan, accessible only to those with a unique power, known as the will not to work. Haruto was among the chosen few, and apart from the joke, there really is a power in this anime, which is why only people who possess this kind of power can play this kind of game. Haruto, despite being in elementary school, got into this game and quickly became skilled and formed a group of very strong friends, and they decided to call their team Subaru. Together, Haruto and his teammates tackled several challenging missions with ease, thanks in part to a girl called Asahi. Her special power, thanks to her unwillingness to work, allowed her to predict the enemy's movements, perfectly complementing Haruto's combat skills. And their group is also made up of a very interesting girl, Satsuki, who secretly has a crush on Haruto. However, she suspected that he had some feelings for Asahi, where they discovered a dungeon that had not yet been conquered, and everyone believed that getting past it was impossible. But Haruto, confident in his abilities, rallied his teammates to conquer it. Although some hesitated, they agreed and set a date to explore the dungeon. Inside the dungeon, the journey went smoothly, with Asahi's foresight nullifying the threats. They reached the final boss chamber, facing a monstrous enemy clad in steel, and Asahi guided them, while Haruto and Taka executed their plan, and this particular monster presented new challenges, and despite Taka's warnings, Haruto rushed in, which brought him to a critical moment where Asahi sacrificed herself, protecting him from a lethal attack, sacrificing herself in the process. Heartbroken, they learned that the death of a player in the mission they were on meant that he could no longer return to the game, and now Asahi's sacrifice haunted them, and Taka blamed Haruto for his recklessness. To make matters worse, Asahi died in real life, at the same moment she died in the game, which made Haruto stop playing and blame himself even more for everything. Years passed, and Haruto, now in high school, had completely distanced himself from the game that took so much out of him. However, Reunion, a complete overhaul of Union, was announced. Haruto resisted the game at first, but eventually gave in to the pleas of his classmates, who needed a third player. Upon entering Reunion, Haruto realized that the game had changed. Wandering around the world, he joined his two classmates in Notion, a boy and a girl who wanted to explore a low-level dungeon, and despite his inexperience, Haruto helped them when they encountered monsters, saving them from a possible helpless disaster. Continuing their journey, they entered a room and discovered a large chest. His colleagues urged Haruto to open it, while they waited at a distance, and when Haruto opened the chest, a blinding light filled the room. When his eyes opened, he was shocked to see an adult Asahi emerging from the chest, and her childhood memories were intact, which made Haruto totally shocked to see her, and even more disturbed by the fact that Asahi was behaving as if nothing had happened to her. At first, he thinks she's an imposter and takes her out of the dungeon to talk to her. She talks to him happily, but senses that Haruto has changed and asks what happened. Haruto hesitates a little to reveal what really happened and begins to interrogate her. He asks her about the current year, and she replies by saying the year she died in the game, 6 years ago. Haruto informs her that 6 years have passed since then, and she doesn't believe him and thinks he's trying to play a joke on her and laughs it off. Haruto can't keep quiet any longer and tells her about his death, which happened 6 years ago. She looks at him seriously and says that he shouldn't make jokes about that sort of thing, and starts talking about something else, trying to change the subject. Haruto, however, tells her to check if she can log out of the game, and she tries to do so, but realizes that she can't log out of the game, which starts to worry her, as Haruto shows her that he can easily log out of the game whenever he wants. She asks him about the whereabouts of the rest of their group, but Haruto tells her that he hasn't spoken to them for 6 years, and that he has no idea where they might be, or whether they play the game or not. This news makes Asahi quite sad, as she can't understand how a group as close-knit as theirs could fall apart, and before she can speak again. However, a group of men surround him on both sides, and one guy comments that he always thought Asahi had died 6 years ago, but now he can see that it's all just rumors. Haruto doesn't remember who this guy is at all, but this guy nevertheless seems to know Haruto from the old days. Asahi easily remembers the muscular guy, and tries to remind Haruto that when they used to play together, This guy would always try to sabotage them, because he really wanted her on their team, but Haruto and the others were so incredibly strong that they easily defeated him. Haruto finally remembers that the muscle brain is known as Leon, and he used to act like my Discord friend, always trying to get a girl who doesn't want him. So he tells Leon to back off, and Leon gets angry and punches a rock, breaking it into 1,000 pieces, before running forward at incredibly high speed and punching Haruto in the stomach, which sends him crashing to the ground. Leon himself looks surprised and laughs at Haruto, asking how he became so weak. Haruto gets up and grabs his sword, ready for battle, but before he can do anything, Leon punches him again. Asahi shouts from behind, saying that this is a fake punch and that he's trying to kick him in the head. Haruto hears this and just in time manages to dodge Leon's attack, and Asahi provides cover, forcing Leon to retreat. He regains his balance and starts threatening them again, saying he'll beat them up and force them out of the game if they don't immediately join his guild and apologize to him. He starts walking towards Haruto, but stops midway after hearing a voice behind him, which was Taka, who has started playing again and is now in one of the strongest guilds known as Illuminati. He summons a group of his subordinates and tells Leon to back off, otherwise he'll give him a game over and send him to the real world forever. Leon doesn't listen to this threat and lunges forward with a punch, but Taka easily dodges and grabs his face before using his special ability, which rips off all his clothes, resulting in his enemy running away in shame. After that, he approaches Haruto and asks if he's lost his mind, to which Haruto replies that maybe. Then he looks at Asahi and smiles, before saying how much he missed her. He and Asahi talk some more, and Taka asks Asahi to join him, and Asahi immediately agrees enthusiastically, saying that the three of them can start a guild again. But Taka gets tense at the statement, and informs her that only she can join him, revealing that he will never work with Haruto again. Haruto simply frowns, while Taka scolds a little more, and tells Asahi not to help him because he's to blame for what happened to her. But Asahi shushes him and says that she doesn't want to go with him anymore because he's being too mean. And after hearing this, Taka leaves, telling Asahi that his gates are open to her and that she just needs to call him if she wants any help. After that, Haruto leaves the game and lies in bed, thinking about everything that has happened so far, when out of nowhere he hears a knock on his door and his sister calling him. He opens the door and finds none other than Satsuki herself, who seems to have grown up a lot, especially in certain places. She greets him awkwardly and asks if she can talk to him. The two of them go to his room, and Satsuki reveals that she has also started playing Reunion, and now she wants to make up with him. Haruto looks surprised and finally reveals that he also played the game for a while today, and tells her that when he went to open a chest, Asahi appeared from it. At first, Satsuki thinks it's a bad joke and scolds him for playing with dead people, but when he tells her the whole story in detail, she says she'll only believe it if she sees Asahi in person, and Haruto finally agrees to rejoin the game. They log into their accounts, and when they meet, Haruto is accompanied by Asahi, which leaves Satsuki totally shocked. Asahi starts asking a lot of questions about where they've been all this time and why their group split up. Satsuki, unable to control her emotions, explodes, telling her that she was the reason the group split up because she died trying to defend Haruto, which led to her death in real life too. Haruto tells Satsuki to back off a bit, but she tells Asahi that she still visits her grave every year, and is afraid that the reason she's there now is just a bug that will disappear soon after an update, causing even more heartbreak for her and Haruto. Suddenly, Haruto senses that something is wrong, and raises his sword to ward off an arrow coming towards them. Suddenly, a group of men surround him, and once again they are demanded to hand over Asahi. However, this time Satsuki pulls out her weapon and unleashes several different elemental magics, which totally shocks her enemy because even excellent magicians can only use 2 or 3 elementals, but Satsuki could use several at once. She is able to deal with all the enemies at once, and tells Haruto and Asahi that they should go back to their old base. Everyone then returns and takes a deep dive into the lake of nostalgia, seeing that their things from 6 years ago are still untouched by time. While the girls were looking for more things, Haruto, the emo boy, ended up going down to the lake by himself, where he suddenly sees a mysterious shadow coming towards him, which turns out to be a little girl called Alicia, who looks more like a Pokemon. She tells Haruto that she can read his brain, and also says that she's not here to hurt them. Instead, she says that a group of people are after Asahi, and that they will lurk in the shadows until the moment to attack is perfect. Haruto is completely stunned by what has just happened, and can't understand where that girl has come from or where she has gone. He feels he needs a break from all this nonsense, and decides to go back upstairs to rest, until he ends up overhearing a heated conversation between Asahi and Satsuki. He hides behind the corner like a snake and listens to the whole conversation, which really isn't nice. He hears Satsuki telling Asahi to leave Haruto alone, because when she died 6 years ago, Haruto was the most hurt of the whole group. Although he didn't show it, he was destroyed inside and stopped being himself, and nothing was able to bring the old Haruto back. She tells Asahi that when she died 6 years ago, a part of Haruto died with her, and she doesn't want Haruto to get hurt again, because this time he might not be able to handle the pain. Asahi is extremely saddened by this, but before she can say anything, Haruto steps in between them and tells them to leave it alone. He says it's fine, and also says that they should leave him alone and worry about themselves, after which he simply leaves the game. The next day, Satsuki shows up at Haruto's door again, all wet. Haruto lets her in and she apologizes for the day before, saying she wanted to protect him. He says he cares a lot about Asahi, and the last thing he wants is for her to leave again. But she also cares about Haruto in the same way, and can't see him suffering so much all the time. He thanks her for caring about him, and suddenly she takes a ring out of her pocket, which immediately triggers some memories in Haruto's brain. He remembers how they went to an arcade, and everyone bought a ring to represent their affiliation and bond with the group. Then Haruto has a certain very criminal idea, and the two of them run to the cemetery where Asahi was buried, and Haruto starts digging up her grave, and he's lucky he wasn't arrested and manages to get a ring out of her grave. This was a ring on which he and Asahi had made a promise to protect each other. After that they return, and Haruto decides that no matter what happens, he will win the game and find a way to preserve Asahi. He also wants to find out why she appeared in the game. The next day they log back into the game, and Asahi convinces Haruto to help her on a mission to recover a very rare Seba from a special tree in the forest. They work together and try to take down these trees, one by one, and they're not very strong monsters, and especially because of Asahi's forward-looking ability, it's very easy to deal with these monsters. The problem, however, is that the rate of obtaining the item Asahi is looking for is extremely low, and most of the trees haven't dropped any Seba after being killed. He decides to make a decoy, and as she expected, a giant monster tree runs up to her and grabs her. Haruto rushes towards the tree and cuts off its hand, and Asahi quickly takes aim and destroys the tree with a well-placed headshot, and to his utter joy, the tree ends up dropping the Seba she wanted so much. It falls into the lake below, but when Haruto climbs down to check on it, he's happy to see that she's completely fine and has gotten the Seba. They go back to town and Asahi takes him to a blacksmith's shop, where she turns the Seba into a ring, and Haruto is very surprised to see that this is the same group ring they got when they were young, and Asahi wants to make 3 of these rings so that the 3 of them can start using them again, like they used to when they were young. She tries to give the ring to Haruto, but Haruto tells her to keep it for himself, and he actually ends up putting the ring on his ring finger, which is seen by Satsuki, who gets very jealous that Asahi is getting all this attention, because, well, the girl is dead, so she quickly flies off into the forest and after a while, returns with a Seba and converts it into a ring, hoping that Haruto will also put the ring on his finger, but he doesn't, which ends up being very funny and very sad. But Satsuki is embarrassed, and since she's a tsundere, she quickly puts the ring on herself. Haruto then devises a plan to find a way to recover Asahi's memory. He goes back to the dungeon where Asahi died, and together with the 2 girls he enters the dungeon to try to defeat the boss, which somehow makes perfect sense to this idiot. Last time, when they were at the peak of their strength, their group had 6 members. They lost and one of them died, so obviously with half the group missing, there's no way they're going to be able to defeat the boss. Yet they carry on anyway, and start going through the same routes of the dungeon, and finally reach the point where they meet the boss last time. But this time nothing happened. Suddenly Asahi feels a presence, and everyone turns around to see that it's just that girl who looks like a Pokemon. However, the girl simply disappears into the darkness, but only after spewing out some nonsensical phrases that no one can decipher. And from that same darkness, a monster emerges once again, in all its glory and power. At that moment, they all have flashbacks of what happened the last time they were here. They decide that this is too scary and try to run away. But the boss is in the mood to play and throws his swords towards the entrance, breaking the ceiling and completely blocking the entrance. The boss throws several swords at them, but they all dodge, and this time, Satsuki decides that someone has to be the man of the group and fight this idiot. She uses her most powerful magic, which combines the magic of all the different elements, firing a giant magic beam at the boss. But to everyone's dismay, the boss has a magic barrier and the magic can't penetrate it. The boss picks up his sword and throws it towards Satsuki, who tries to dodge, but misses and is hit in the legs, becoming dazed and unable to move. The gas thief Haruto quickly runs towards her and tries to defend her, but the boss simply hits him with a fly in the air, and he too gets trapped under some fallen debris. The boss starts to move slowly to end his life. But Asahi isn't content with dying just once by this monster, revealing that it would be very nice for her to die twice. So she gets in front of him once again and starts shooting him with her weak weapon. Haruto tells her to move away so that she doesn't die once again and destroy her mental health by dying again. But she stands right in front of him and somehow shoots the boss in the head, causing the ceiling to fall in on him and everyone to gain some extra time. However, in the process, she is also hit and is quite dazed and unable to move her legs. The boss gets up once again, and Haruto curses himself for being so weak. He prepares to admit defeat, but suddenly he sees something shining on the ground and finds a ring. He remembers that this was the ring that had fallen from his hand when they fought the boss earlier, and this gives him a boost of energy. He picks up the ring and uses it. The monster tries to attack Asahi, but Haruto quickly intercepts the attack and cuts off the monster's arm. He then summons his lion spirit, which attacks the monster, seriously injuring it. Haruto and the others walk out of the dungeon and seem to be very happy with today's success. But suddenly Asahi starts to feel dizzy and collapses on the ground. Suddenly all three of them see some flashbacks of old memories that belong to Asahi, where she seems to be in a completely different place, and the place was filled with people in lab coats. When the vision ends, Haruto asks what that was, but Asahi says she has no idea, as she has no memory of those occurrences. They go to the inn where they are staying, and as soon as they enter, everyone turns to them and begins to ask if they are in fact the revered group, the famous Subaru group. Haruto decides to ignore them completely and takes the other two girls into the living room, where they sit down and relax for a while. And Asahi is still fully committed to uniting the whole team under a single banner once again. But Haruto informs them that they don't even know if Clive and Nozomi are still playing the game. Satsuki says that she has several informants and that they can help find out where they are and whether they are still playing the game or not. The next day, they all go out to find the informants and find out if they have any information about the other two members. But on the way, they come across a group of people running away, and when they ask why they are running away, they reply that the guild known as Southern Cross has been spotted in the vicinity of the area. Haruto considers backing off, as he doesn't want to get into trouble now, as they've known Southern Cross since the past, and they were one of the guilds that wanted to rob Asahi, but never succeeded. Satsuki, however, tells him that the informers are nearby, and that they shouldn't take too long to answer them. So Haruto agrees. They walk into a valley, and suddenly Haruto senses that something is wrong, and he was right, as the leader of Southern Cross emerges from behind a rock. Suddenly they look around and see that they are completely surrounded by members of the guild, who number in the thousands. It turns out that the leader intercepted the informers and ended up luring the three of them to this spot, so that he could take Asahi and leave. Haruto tells his friends to back off, and Satsuki tries to draw her weapons. But immediately a barrage of arrows falls near Satsuki, as a warning to her to be quiet. The leader says that there is no way out of this, and that the best thing they can do is to peacefully hand over Asahi and go back to where they came from without causing any problem. Haruto obviously refuses the offer and tells him to stick his offer where it belongs. Haruto then tries to find a way to escape this difficult situation, but suddenly a group of men dressed in blue appear from behind the Southern Cross members and take them hostage. Haruto recognizes them as the Brio Society, whose leader used to hate Haruto and his group, and they also wanted to steal the Asahi. The leader of the Brio Society shouts at the leader of the Southern Cross, telling him to back off, as he has taken Haruto and the others for his temporary protection. The leader of the Southern Cross Guild seems hesitant, but when he sees that they are outnumbered and outgunned, he gives in and calls on his troops to retreat for the time being. The leader of the Brio Society approaches Haruto and asks if they are all right. Haruto tells him that they are fine and immediately asks what his plans are and why he protected them. Then the current leader of the group says that the old leader really hated Haruto and the others, but he doesn't hate them anymore, because he has no reason to. He only came here to offer Haruto and the others the chance to join his guild, so that they could protect Asahi. According to him, Asahi is an element that shouldn't be present in the game, but still is, which makes the game run on a very unstable basis, and any incident could break the balance and result in the whole game collapsing, and he wants to prevent that from happening. Asahi, however, introduces herself and says that she won't be joining anyone's guild, as she already has a guild of her own, which will always help and protect her when necessary. The leader looks at them and says that they are making a mistake, but he won't force them to join him, as this could also damage the balance of the game. He then bids them farewell, before calling his troops together and leaving. Haruto and the others return to the pause, and he and Satsuki disconnect from the game. The next day, Haruto invites Satsuki on a sort of date, because he wants to buy some new hardware for his computer, and Satsuki enthusiastically accepts the invitation. They go into the mall and buy things, before deciding to go for lunch as well, which makes Satsuki extremely happy. Haruto, however, is too dumb and talks about Asahi all the time, which makes Satsuki feel left out, causing her to completely lose her humor and also forcing her to leave. The next day, everyone disconnects from the game again, and Haruto finds the two in the same inn. They try to find out what visions they had when they left the dungeon, and how they are connected to Asahi. Asahi says that she tries to remember it often, and that the memory that sticks in her mind the most was when she jumped into the beam of light to try to save Haruto. They think about it for a long time, trying to find any way to bring her memories back. And finally, Haruto has an idea. He asks Asahi about the place where her prophetic powers were first used, and she replies that it was in the Tower of Heaven at the very beginning, when they weren't very strong. Haruto says that they need to go there, and maybe this will help Asahi remember something. They all head for the tower and enter it, where they end up facing a few monsters here and there, which they considered very strong at the time, but now are just a minor nuisance to them. They enter the nostalgia trail again as they go through areas they visited before. And finally, after defeating all the little monsters, they enter the boss room, where the boss turns out to be a giant robot, and Haruto remembers the time he faced it and defeated it. He remembers the time they faced him, and at the time he felt that the boss was so powerful that no one could defeat him. But this time the boss seems to be child's play to them. Asahi starts shooting at the robot, destroying one of its arms, while Haruto rushes forward to quickly cut off the other arm. Asahi then uses his flame magic to completely burn the robot, which takes them to level 2, where the robot releases a large amount of steam, making visibility almost zero. Haruto remembers that the last time they faced it, the steam almost caught them completely off guard, and they only managed to defeat the boss because Satsuki used her light magic, which lifted the steam and allowed them to get closer to their target. Haruto tells Satsuki to use her light magic one more time, but she is suddenly caught and stunned by a rope coming out of the robot. She disappears into the steam, which frightens Haruto, and he asks Asahi to use his flare projectiles. Asahi fires a flare that raises the steam. Haruto uses his special blows of fury to completely destroy the robot. They then head for the rooftop, and finally Asahi decides to use the teleport crystal to leave the area. But suddenly she sees a mysterious red gem among her items. She takes it out and shows it to Haruto, who doesn't know what it is either. But suddenly Taka teleports to the same place as them, along with the members of his guild, and quickly steals the red gem. Asahi tells him to give it back, but Taka tells her no. He then turns to Haruto and asks him if he's trying to kill Asahi, which is a pretty stupid question since Haruto is in love with her. So Haruto obviously answers no. However, Taka just wanted to fight, giving the excuse that Haruto is taking Asahi to two dangerous places. He creates an isolation camera and challenges Haruto to a duel. Taka runs up to Haruto and tries to punch him, but Haruto easily blocks the punch, only to be pushed back by Taka's extraordinary strength. He tells Haruto that Asahi is real and that he cares about her, which is why he's willing to stay in the game world if that's what it takes to be by her side. He becomes the greatest Imogrodo of all time when he tells Haruto that the real world has lost all meaning on the very day that Asahi died. The real world is garbage to him, but here in the world of reunion, where Asahi is still alive, he can be happy, and that's why he never wants to leave this world. Haruto understands how stupid his plans are, and says that they should also consider Asahi's feelings and not just their own. He says that if he wants to make her happy and take her from behind, he should recreate the guild with them. But Taka doesn't want that, and he tries to punch Haruto, who prepares to do the same. But before they can really fight, the isolation sphere collapses. Satsuki is the one who broke the sphere with her magic, and even Asahi points her gun at Taka, telling him to stay away from Haruto. Taka is very sad about this and walks away. Then Asahi calls him and asks him to join them once again to recreate the guild they used to have, because with his help they can find Clive and Nozomi. But he tells them that he has no idea and no desire to join forces with Haruto. After that, Taka and the other members of the Illuminati leave and teleport away. Haruto and Satsuki also say goodbye and log out of the game. The next day, Haruto logs into the game early and goes with Asahi to different locations, so that they can meet the informants there and ask for information about Clive and Nozomi. They travel to various continents and ask lots of questions to get information, but none of them seem to know much about anyone called Clive or Nozomi, as they are not registered on their continent. They then go to the edge of the forest and wait for Satsuki to arrive so that they can continue their journey. They try to find more teleporters, but can't, so they decide to walk towards the next continent, and the path ends up taking them into a forest covered in mist. At first, they seemed to appreciate the beauty of the misty forest, but as the fog thickened, they became more uncomfortable with the whole situation. Suddenly, Satsuki stops and tells them to get ready. She says that there are more than 100 people waiting for them. Haruto says that he would have sensed their presence, but Satsuki replies that the mist is intertwined with a very strong magic that is completely concealing their presence. Haruto draws his sword, but before he can do anything, everyone separates. He finds himself surrounded by a group of people who belong to the guilds they recently met. He is very confused by this, but the leader of them all, Liu, approaches him and informs him that the Southern Cross, the Brill family, and the Illuminati have joined forces to take his Tsar. He's furious about this and engages Leo in a duel. He rushes towards him, with a single blow, cuts Leo's shield in two, and he immediately realizes that he can't beat Haruto alone. Haruto, however, continues to insist and tries to land another blow, but Leo dodges and kicks him back, then tells everyone around to shoot Haruto. Haruto runs towards Leo again and blocks the incoming arrows, when suddenly an arrow passes behind him and hits Leo in the shoulder, completely nullifying his ability. Haruto turns around and sees Alice with a bow and arrow. She says that her special ability is to nullify magic, and that if her arrows hit someone, it will seal that person's magic. Leo shouts at his companions to attack them, but Alice fires an arrow into the air, which splits into hundreds of arrows and rains down on all the enemies, sealing their abilities and rendering each of them useless. Taka takes Tsar to a secluded spot and tells her that she can't let Haruto have her because he can't protect her. Tsar tells him again to recreate their guild, but Taka refuses, so Tsar refuses to end with Taka. So he imprisons her in a ball and releases Guy, which knocks her unconscious. He releases the catapult, but suddenly some members of his guild run up to Tsar and grab her. Taka is furious with them and asks them to leave her immediately, but it turns out that they are imposters and not his guild. They quickly surround Taka and subdue him, and the others take the Tsar and flee. Haruto and Sato return to the inn, where an announcement is made by the leaders of April Society and Southern Cross, stating that they have united their guilds, making them the strongest guild in the game, both in terms of power and numbers. They also ended up betraying the Illuminati in the end and capturing the Tsar for themselves. And now they've renamed their combined guild the Divine Guild. Haruto simply gets up and checks his equipment before telling Sato that he's going to save the Tsar. Sato then decides to use her brain, so she tells him to think again, because the Divine Guild now has a combined force of over 3,000 players, and he can never do anything against them. She tells him to collaborate with Taka, but he refuses and tells her to stay away because he'll probably die. But Sato says that if he's going to die without even saving Tsar, then he should join forces with Taka. However, Haruto himself says it's the other way around. Once he loses the fight and dies, Taka will probably team up with her in order to save Tsar, and that makes a lot of sense. After that, he finally arrives at the battlefield and sees a whole army of people waiting for him. He looks up at the sky one last time, accepting the fact that he's not going to make it out of this fight alive, trying to make a reference to Zero no Tsukema. He runs towards his enemies at full speed, and meanwhile Sato goes to Taka to talk to him, as this is the only possible way she can think of to help Haruto. He agrees to talk to her, and when she asks what he's doing to try to save the Tsar, she replies that the combined strength of the Abreu family and Southern Cross is very strong, and that they have twice as many men as the Illuminati. He tells her that he is planning and looking for an opportunity to attack, because he can't take any risks in saving the Tsar. Satsuki is furious with him, and says that Asahi's kidnapping was his fault in the first place. She yells at him that Haruto has always been able to keep her safe, but the one time Haruto wasn't there to protect her, Taka couldn't do anything, and let Asahi be kidnapped by the people he put his faith in. Taka seems surprised, but he still doesn't seem ready to accept his mistake. He tells her that this time, he'll plan everything perfectly and save Asahi in one fell swoop. Satsuki looks at him. He says that Haruto has gone alone to the battlefield to try to save Asahi, while Taka is sitting here, thinking like an idiot. Taka looks at her and says that this is very good, because then Haruto will die too, which will make his life much easier. He tells Satsuki to let Haruto die in the game, as it will benefit them both. He tells her that if Haruto dies, he'll never be able to access the gathering again, and he'll never be able to meet Asahi. That way all his attention would be on Satsuki, and just as she would have Haruto, he would remain in this world with Asahi, never having to deal with Haruto constantly calling for her attention. Satsuki says that Asahi is her friend and that she will do anything to save her. She tells him that if he can't help her save Asahi, she'll go alone to help, because she has a backbone and isn't a coward like Taka. Meanwhile, Haruto is destroying the enemy's front line, eliminating enemy after enemy. He's much stronger than any of the enemies, but the overwhelming number of enemies has been a big problem for him. The magic users at the top of the fortress combine their strength and cast an incredibly strong explosion magic on Haruto, and he can't dodge it. The explosion creates a giant crater, and everyone thinks Haruto is dead. But to their surprise, when the dust clears, the shadow of a figure is seen and Haruto is still standing there. He once again leaps forward and begins to destroy the entire enemy army single-handedly. He ends up facing several enemies who tell him to surrender because he's already half-beaten and badly wounded, and he can't even dream of saving Asahi in this state. But Haruto tells them all to shut up. However, before he could proceed, he was tied up by a bunch of magical chains that held him high above the ground, completely incapacitating him. The enemies laugh at him, and their commander orders them to finish Haruto off, while he is weak and incapacitated. They start walking towards him, and even Haruto admits defeat, but suddenly a bunch of lightning arrows come hurtling towards the ground and break his chain. To his total surprise, Taka lands in front of him, Satsuki follows, and the three of them stand in the middle of the entire enemy army. Taka looks at Haruto and tells him to remember that he's here to save Asahi, not to save him. Haruto looks at him and nods in acknowledgement. Taka asks Haruto about the number of enemies left, and Haruto replies that there are about 1,500 enemies left, since the most he could do was destroy half of them. Taka and Haruto then start working together synergistically, using their special abilities. In this way, they manage to quickly destroy the rest of the enemies. They beat up everyone in their path and run towards the giant door of the fortress. They join forces again, and with a combined attack, they blow the door to pieces. They enter a giant corridor, which leads to a stadium where they see several enemies, alongside Leos and Angelus, the leaders of the Southern Cross Brio Society. Taka quickly notices Asahi unconscious in Angelus' arm, and his blood starts to boil at the sight of his girl in the other guy's hand. He rushes to hit him with a super powerful punch, but everyone dodges out of the way. Taka is shocked, as his speed is so impressive that no one could dodge. Angelus immediately creates thorns on the spot, forcing him to jump several times. Whenever he lands somewhere, he is attacked immediately, even if he is teleporting. Haruto is also confused by this, but Satsuki tells him that Angelus is probably reading Asahi's brain, and since she can see the future, he is able to see the future by forcing his way into her brain. Suddenly Taka is trapped by a beam of red energy, which he can't get through no matter how hard he tries. Angelus tells Leos to finish Taka off while he's trapped, but as soon as he gets close, Haruto attacks. Leos, however, is able to dodge the attack and counterattack, pushing back. Haruto then uses an air strike, but Leos manages to block the attack. Satsuki tries to wake Asahi up by shouting her name, but Angelus tells her it's no use, and creates magical ice spikes on the ground, which hits Satsuki and she falls. Satsuki decides, however, that she's been saved many times before, and this time she won't be the damsel in distress. She unleashes her full potential, and begins to float in the sky with an extremely powerful aura around her. She summons all the elemental J's around her, and asks them to provide her with all their energies, and creates an insanely strong magic circle that sucks all the magical aura out of the stage, which allows her to eliminate many enemies at once. The magic is also nullified and the attack is unleashed, which frightens her enemy, who quickly asks Angelus about the new plan. Angelus looks at him and tells him not to worry, because they're going to use their emergency plan, and it will work no matter what. His partner looks at him with relief, but suddenly Angelus creates a ball of energy and stabs the one who should be his partner in the stomach, pushing the ball of energy into him. The man hit begins to spin out of control and is overcome by a kind of black magic. Going completely mad, he rushes forward and smashes his sword into the ground, and the shockwave throws Haruto and Taka away. Suddenly Asahi wakes up too, which prevents Angelus from seeing the future, but she's so exhausted that she can't do anything. Satsuki has also used up almost all her energy, and she can only use one magic attack at a time. Asahi shouts at them to fight as they did before, and to remember the moves they used 6 years ago, when they fought as a real team. She asks them to attack together, so that no one can defeat them. Suddenly, the rings dared by all of them begin to glow, and their senses awaken from their slumber. The three decide to go all out in a final attack and do everything they can. Satsuki and Taka use their special abilities to do crazy things, while Haruto uses his ethereal sword to cross time and space and deliver 1,000,000 blows to his enemy, while his own enemy was motionless, which results in his enemy being killed in an instant. Satsuki runs over to Asahi, while Haruto stands in front of Angelus. He tries to run away, but Taka goes after him and knocks him out with a punch straight to the face, and Satsuki uses her flame magic to burn him to death. Asahi asks Taka to give them red flame because she wants to try to see the visions again, as they are the only memory she has. She holds the stone in her hands and concentrates, which causes everyone to have flashbacks of hazy memories, in which a group of people wearing white coats are discussing their abilities and how they can use them. Taka is extremely surprised by this and asks her what this is, and Asahi replies that although she doesn't know anything about it, she feels that this is what has happened to her over the last 6 years. She is determined to find out what these memories mean and how she can recover all her memories and find out everything that happened to her. She then tries one last time to ask Taka to join their guild, but he refuses once again, saying that he still doesn't deserve her and that he needs to work harder on himself before he can show his face to her again. He then turns to Haruto and tells him not to die, before he has a chance to kill him, and leaves. Soon Haruto and Asahi and Satsuki go in search of a supposed treasure in a dangerous sea area. They hitch a ride on the pirate ship of the only female captain brave enough to visit the inhospitable sea called the Lost Pentagon. Haruto has heard rumors that there is an unbreakable sword at the bottom of the sea, and Elvita says the rumors are true. She warns them that getting the sword out isn't easy, and that everyone who has tried to claim it has failed. The ship soon arrives at the Lost Pentagon, an area permanently covered in dark clouds and fog. Elvita gives Haruto and his friends a boat, and advises them not to stay underwater for too long, as this will quickly drain their HP. Everyone then decides to dive into the sea without any protective equipment, using only Satsuki's light spirits as a flashlight. They reach the bottom of the sea and explore the ruins. Haruto realizes that his HP is gradually decreasing as a result of staying underwater. His friends tell him to go back to the surface to breathe. Once outside, they start complaining that this area is too big, and that it will take too long to fully explore. But Asahi points to a place, saying that what they are looking for could be hidden there. Her friends follow her advice, and Haruto finds a sword stuck at the bottom of the ocean, in the place she suggested. And it's no ordinary sword, but his ancient sword, the Pleiades, which is one of the strongest weapons in this world. He can definitely feel that this is his sword, and not a copy, and Asahi tells him to take it out quickly. Haruto holds the sword and it starts to glow, but then the ground beneath them starts to shake, and the sea starts to move, until out of nowhere a giant monster appears, which in this case is a sea serpent, which comes out of the ground with Haruto's sword stuck in its head. Satsuki knows that this monster is called Igai, and he is the boss of this region. Asahi points to its red eyes and suggests that the creature is enraged, just like the two previous bosses they fought. Suddenly, the sea serpent attacks them, and Haruto blocks the attack with his aura. He rushes to attack the monster, but it easily pushes him away. Asahi fires at the monster, but his shot isn't effective enough to pierce its thick armor. His attack has distracted it, and it is about to swallow him when someone throws a dagger into the sea serpent. The dagger increases in size and prevents the monster's mouth from closing. Satsuki saves Asahi, and then they see that the person who just saved her is their old friend, Clive. They can only stare in shock as Clive challenges the sea serpent. He throws his dagger into the creature's eye to blind it, then signals his friends to return to the surface. However, when they arrive at the elven ship, Clive is no longer with them, and only leaves a message for them, saying that he has something to do and that he will meet them soon. Haruto and the others are surprised by his sudden appearance and disappearance, but they remember that Clive is just like that. The next day, Haruto and Satsuki visit Taka in the real world, where he shows off his wealth and tells them that he will reward them with anything for attacking them before. Satsuki surprises him by ordering the entire dessert menu and saying she won't share anything with anyone. But after she finishes eating, he gets straight to the point. Taka wants to talk about Asahi, and he asks his friends if they've noticed anything strange since she came back. Satsuki points out that rumors are spreading unusually fast, and Taka says that Union's biggest guild, Gnosis, was behind it. Gnosis was a secret and obscure guild that had a lot of influence even in the real world, and Haruto and Satsuki find it hard to believe that they were trying to get everyone to go after Asahi in the game. Taka says he wants to save her, but also asks them to keep this secret for her, and after that, Satsuki tells him that Pleiades, Haruto's weapon, is trapped in the maw of a sea creature, and she also says how a former companion of theirs appeared and then left them, as if he were a ghost. Taka finds all this hard to believe and suspects that the red stone that gives Asahi those terrible flashbacks is the key to solving the mysteries surrounding them. He says that he must have a theory about the fact that Asahi's body is still alive in the real world, and that scientists are trying to experiment on her. Haruto and Satsuki are startled to hear this, and even Taka finds his hypothesis shameful. Just then, his butler arrives to inform him that they have found Nozomi's address, and Taka gets nervous because he doesn't want his guests to know that he is secretly looking for his former companion. He says he's doing it to make Asahi happy, and has no plans to reunite the old group again. Later, Haruto and Satsuki enter the game again, and together with Asahi they try to win Haruto's gun again. Their second attempt is also a total failure, and while they're moping around, Clive arrives to fill them in. The reunion is rather awkward, as he tries to dodge questions about their previous meeting, and says that they'll talk about their real lives later. Clive says that he was also after this marine thing, and that he found them by coincidence. His friends believe him, but Elvda has some suspicions about him. Clive shows them a rare item that allows them to breathe and move freely in the water. The item is thrown into the sea and everyone dives in. They find themselves covered by a protective layer, and then the sea serpent appears before them, and following their plan, Haruto attacks first and stabs the creature with all his might to make it scream in pain. After that, Clive throws his daggers at the monster, and Asahi increases their power with her bullet. Their combined attack creates a web of threads around the sea serpent, and Clive learns. With Haruto's help, he pulls the monster out of the sea, and all the other monsters come to the surface too. Satsuki freezes the monster and the water around it. With a powerful ice spell, Haruto rushes to free his weapon, but as soon as he touches the sword, Clive stabs him from behind. Satsuki and Asahi stare in disbelief as they watch him fall, and Asahi begins to hyperventilate, her sense of prophetic art involuntarily activated. Haruto wakes up in a hospital bed and wonders how he got here, and then Asahi enters his room and hugs him. She cries as she tells him that he'll be fine soon, but Haruto still has no idea what's going on. Asahi explains that 6 years ago he was defeated at Union when he tried to protect Nozomi, and in the real world, he fell into a coma after that incident. Haruto knows this isn't true because Asahi died trying to protect him from that attack, but right now she's alive in front of him. Afterwards, his other friends also arrive to greet him, and they seem happy together. Haruto asks them about the reunion game, but they've never heard the name. He can only wonder what's going on, and at night when he's losing his mind, he sees Alice's hologram appear in his room. Haruto asks her what's going on, and she tells him that right now he's in a world created by Asari's ability. She explains that the power they use within this game is not limited to the virtual world, but can also be used in the outside world. And Asari's prophetic art was not only the ability to see the future, but also the ability to choose between different possible futures. And she still doesn't know about it. A few moments ago, when Haruto was stabbed in the back by Clive, she subconsciously activated her ability and chose this world in which he doesn't die and remains in a coma. That was the only way to stop him playing Reunion and prevent his death. Haruto finds this hard to believe, and Alice explains that Union wasn't just a game, but a laboratory and training ground to help people train and awaken their senses, so that they could be used in real life. However, all this was secondary, and Union and Reunion were games developed only because the people behind them wanted to awaken Asari's prophetic art. Alice claims that the Gnosis Guild was the one who created Union to obtain her ability. They put intense psychological stress on Asari to force her to awaken her abilities, and she created this world, and as soon as she finishes telling him this, Alice's time runs out, and she disappears. But before she leaves, she tells Haruto that he is the singularity point, and only he can save Asari. Haruto wonders what he can do, and absent-mindedly picks up his ring without noticing the faulty mirror. The next day, Asari visits him and reminds him of the promise they made just before the accident. She asked Haruto to promise her that they would protect each other, so they exchanged rings in the game and were planning to do so in real life too. She thinks it's a good time to exchange rings in real life, but Haruto doesn't think it's right. He says she's already saved him twice, but he can't accept this world. He tells Asari that he needs to go back to the real world to protect her, and the world begins to show serious flaws. She laughs, not sure what he means, but believes him anyway. They then hold hands, and their rings act as catalysts, which sends Haruto back to the world he came from. They arrive at the meeting just before Clive is stabbed, and he summons his sword to deflect the attack. The two get into fighting position, and Haruto is happy to see Sasuke and Asari. Sasuke confronts Clive and asks him why he attacked his friend, and he replies that he has changed in the last 6 years, and that he is now an enemy of his former friends from the Subaru group. However, Haruto is sure that Clive would never betray his friends. He realizes that the person in front of them is not Clive, but a shapeshifter who is imitating him. Haruto attacks him, and although the man blocks with his sword, he can't dodge the punch that comes full of his aura. This punch completely knocks the air out of his lungs, which undoes his shape shifting. The man who is pretending to be Clive returns to his original form, and uses the magic circle in his hand to control the sea creature. He mounts the creature and introduces himself as Simon, the 6th maniac of the Gnosis Guild, and he declares that he will kill them here. He uses his ability and merges with the sea creature to become a hideous monster, and fires a blast of energy at Haruto and his friends. Satsuki blocks the attack, but her shield breaks, and they are blown away. The molten monster separates its arms and fires them like projectiles, and Satsuki once again puts up a shield to protect herself and her friend. Simon continues to attack them and breaks their shields, and in the smoke resulting from the attack, he grabs Satsuki and tells Haruto not to move if he wants her to live. The monster asks Asahi to awaken her power to save her friend, and squeezes Satsuki tightly, threatening to crush her to death. Asahi starts to use her power to save her, but suddenly a flurry of daggers comes at the monster, cutting off its limbs, which ends up freeing Satsuki. Haruto catches her and discovers that the elvish girl has come to rescue them, but he realizes that she is not who she pretends to be. The pirate captain transforms and reveals that she was the real Clive all along, and Haruto is now sure that this is his friend because of his characteristic pose. Clive draws the attention of the shapeshifter who was impersonating him, and tells him that identity theft is no joke. They prepare to fight again, but before anyone can attack him, Simon creates a giant magic circle that covers the sky. He summons thousands of bolts of lightning, and Haruto protects Asahi, withstanding the attack until the end. The monster is impressed, but he tells them that Satsuki and Clive died because of his attack. However, he gets a shock when Clive suddenly attacks him, and then he and Satsuki come out of hiding. They say they survived the attack by combining their ability, and Simon is shocked. Clive uses his power to turn the knives he threw at the monster into hooks. Haruto understands the plan and throws Asahi high into the sky so that she can fire the transformed knife. It hits the hook and activates its ability to trap any monster. The molten monster falls into the frozen sea, and Haruto takes the chance to grab his sword, but it's stuck too tightly. Suddenly, he has an idea and asks his friends to cooperate with him. Satsuki and Clive send their powers towards him, and Asahi combines them and sends them towards the sword, fully charging it with their combined energy. The sword begins to glow, and Haruto uses his ultimate combo attack to destroy Simon and the sea serpent from the inside. And after a flash of bright light, the enemy is reduced to nothing, and Haruto and the girls are reunited with Clive on the ship. And before they can talk about the past, they show them the red crystal that fell after the monster was defeated. Asahi picks it up, and another memory of the hooded scientists doing experiments comes into his mind. In this memory, Alice comes to rescue her and knocks out the scientist. She uses her ability to seal Asahi's sense, and then a red crystal ball comes out of her, shattering into several pieces. The memory ends and everyone realizes that the red stones with the flashbacks are the part of the crystal ball that broke in the vision. The group reaches Taka, who doesn't believe Clive is real, so he attacks him and overpowers him to prove his abilities. Seeing that he could easily defeat him, Taka agrees that this Clive is not an imposter. Haruto and his friends tell him everything that happened at sea, and even show him Haruto's gun that they got as proof. Taka finds this hard to believe and takes them to his guild's base. There Clive informs them that the woman who saved Asahi is called Alicia, and that he was working with her to keep Asahi safe in the shadows. Haruto claims to have met her, which makes Sato and Asahi jealous, and they demand that he tell them everything he knows about her. Haruto says that she has appeared to him a few times, and then tells the story of being sent to another place, created by Asahi to save his life, and how he met Alicia there. He repeats what she told him about Asahi's true power, and no one believes that her ability can really choose a more suitable future, and Taka starts fighting with Haruto. Clive laughs at them, because they used to fight like this in the past, but he reminds them that the most important thing now is to protect Asahi, since the strongest guild, Gnosis, is after her. That's why all the members of the Subaru group need to awaken their powers to protect her. Satsuki says that they can't complete it yet, because Nozomi is missing, and she wants to go and see her. Taka gives her the address, but says he can't go with them because Nozomi always gets nervous and shy around him, and he suspects she's afraid of him. He has no idea that she likes him, and his cluelessness infuriates Satsuki and Asahi. In the real world, Haruto and Satsuki go to meet Nozomi at her house, and find her at the gate. She has changed a lot from the past, and invites them to talk over a cup of coffee. Nozomi tells them that she now works as a model. She says that when she transferred schools, she worked hard to change and became more popular when she gained confidence. After they've finished talking, Haruto asks her to log in to Reunion, as everyone is already there, but Nozomi replies that she can't do him that favor, as she's stopped playing since Asahi died in that incident. Satsuki and Haruto tell her that Asahi is still alive in the world of Reunion, but she refuses to believe them. They try to convince her to trust them, and to see Asahi in person after she logs in, but it's no use. Later, everyone except Nozomi has logged on and is at their old base, where they can only talk about how much Nozomi has changed. Satsuki asks Taka to go with them to meet her next time, saying that she will definitely listen if he asks her to sign in. He still doesn't like the idea, but Asahi begs him to go and meet Nozomi, and he has no choice but to agree to meet her. At that moment, a notification of the event appears in front of them, and Satsuki reads that it was something about dancing, as if it were an in-game prom for nerds who can't find a partner in the real world. The description of the event states that it will be a romantic evening in which eternal love will blossom between the partners, and Satsuki and Asahi know what they want. Satsuki is nervous and restless, even in the real world, so she logs on early in the game and calls Haruto to meet her in private. She wants him to ask her to the dance, and blushes as she tells him so. Haruto is surprised, but Satsuki can't hold back her feelings any longer, and confesses that she's liked him since elementary school, and seeing that he's too stunned to respond, she asks him to make himself at home. Haruto can't get her words out of his mind, and can only think of their friendship as he looks at old photos. But then he receives a message from Taka, asking him to go to Asahi's grave right away. Haruto goes to meet him, and there Taka declares that he will ask Asahi to dance with him the next day, and he wanted to at least tell his rival about it. Haruto acts like it's no big deal, and tells him to do whatever he wants. Taka hates this attitude. He throws a punch and Haruto asks him what his problem is, then tries to fight back, but Taka beats him effortlessly. He claims to be better than Haruto at everything, both in the real world and in the game. He says that he always thinks of Asahi, and that he wants to protect her smile, but she chose Haruto over him. Taka is furious that she sacrificed her life for him, and wishes that Haruto had been the one to die that day. Haruto is furious to hear this, and shouts that Taka isn't even thinking about what Asahi wants. He attacks him, but Taka knocks him to the ground, while declaring that he has always loved Asahi, and that he wants to keep her happy now. Haruto gets up and tells him that Asahi only sees him as a friend, and that her wish is for all her friends to get back together and form the Subaru group. Taka hits him, but Haruto now blocks his attack and announces that he loves Asahi too, then punches him. Taka is speechless after his declaration of love, and says that he will now give up on Asahi. He's always been annoyed that Haruto has never declared his true feelings before, but now that he's gotten him to reveal the truth, he's satisfied. Haruto leaves after hearing this, and Taka takes the Subaru group ring from his locket and buries one of them on Asahi's grave, saying that he will certainly forget her. Inside the game, the night of the dance has finally arrived, and there is Sato who is waiting anxiously for Haruto. However, he apologizes to her and says he can't go with her. She replies that she understands and tells him to go with Asahi. As he leaves, she starts to cry, but Taka appears behind her and says that he also asked Asahi to dance, but she rejected him. Sato says he doesn't seem as upset as she expected, but he says he's matured after his fight with Haruto, so he offers to be Sato's dance partner for the evening since they've both lost the battle of love, and she accepts the offer. Meanwhile, Haruto and Asahi meet, and Haruto asks her to dance, and she is very happy. They dance and lose themselves in each other's eyes. In the outside world, unaware of the developing love triangles, Nozomi remembers the moment she fell in love with Taka. She was just a weak and shy girl in elementary school, and one day, Taka was kind enough to help her with the cleaning chores after everyone had abandoned her. She then decides to find him in the game and logs in. Nozomi arrives at the dance hall, expecting to find her friends there, but as soon as she enters the hall, she finds Taka dancing happily with Satsuki. At that moment, her heart breaks. She starts to cry as she runs, and arrives at an empty place outside. Suddenly, the place around her collapses, and she finds herself in a strange, dark hall. Nozomi wonders where she is, when out of nowhere a woman and a clown come to greet her. They introduce themselves as the members of the Gnosis, and laugh at the fact that she has been tricked by her friend, and she is obviously terrified of the clown. After a few days, Haruto and Satsuki meet in the real world. He's embarrassed to face her, but now she's calmer, having cried a lot over the last few days. They meet Taka outside Nozomi's house, and there she tells the boys that last night she received a call from Nozomi's mother, saying that her daughter had disappeared from home. They ask her mother for the details, and she says she doesn't know anything apart from the fact that Nozomi left her VR headset on her desk before she left the house. Taka hacks it and discovers that Nozomi logged in only once, 2 days ago, and Satsuki realizes that it was the same time everyone was dancing. The Subaru members make a video call, and after Taka and Clive finish their investigation into their missing friend, Clive discovers that after Nozomi logged on, she went to the dance hall, and he adds that she is still inside Reunion, and discovered that she is located in the Dragon Fortress at that moment, but her real-life location cannot be traced. Haruto logs in and visits his base, where he finds Sari trying to redecorate the base. They look each other in the eye and start to get closer, but Clive and Satsuki interrupt them because they need to find Nozomi. They teleport to the Dragon Fortress, where Taka is waiting for them, and they discover that the fortress seems to have been made by Nozomi's dream world sense. They enter the fortress and find it hard to believe that Nozomi was able to do this so soon after entering the game. While exploring the building, Haruto notices a trap, and then huge stuffed monsters emerge from the ground and surround them. The group is sure that these are Nozomi's relatives, that this place was created by her, Sari wants to talk to Nozomi through her relatives, but they are not friendly and attack her. Fortunately, Haruto saves her from getting hurt and kills the two relatives. Together with Clive, Satsuki tries to burn the other two, but they resist her fire magic and walk towards her. She is stuck using another attack. When she sees Nozomi and her family, they attack her, but Taka and Haruto protect her from them. Nozomi's cruel laughter echoes in the hall when she says that Taka is the one who cares most about Satsuki. She greets her old friends once again, and Haruto is shocked by the strange way she's acting. Nozomi laughs and claps when she sees Sari alive inside the game, but then tells her friends that they made a mistake by coming after her. Suddenly, the two Gnosis players appear in the room and introduce themselves as the 5th and 4th strongest players in their guild. Nozomi laughs as she declares that she joined Gnosis and created this fortress by combining her powers with the clown. Haruto is furious and declares that he will get his friend back, even if he has to use force, and the clown uses his power to summon his family around them. The heroes fight the familiars and destroy them one by one. Satsuki attacks the woman, but she uses a combo move with the clown to create a magic cloth that absorbs all her attack. Haruto tries to attack her too, but his attacks are also absorbed by the magic cloth, and when it's Nozomi's turn, she summons her relatives to attack her friend. They try to bring her back to her senses, but she attacks them, saying that they have let her down. Satsuki tells her to wake up, saying that everyone is here to save her, but she insults her and calls her a dog who'll give anything. Nozomi pulls out a lock of her hair, teleports it through the magic fabric so that it reaches Sari undetected, and there the hair turns into a small two-headed snake and bites her. Sari screams in pain as she sees a terrible memory in which Haruto refused to trust his ability to predict the future and almost screwed up in a fight against the monster. He refused to admit he was wrong and started arguing with her. The memory is even more intense in the form of a dream, and Sari faints, saying that she hates Haruto. The two Gnosis members disappear alongside Nozomi. Haruto and his friends are told that they will meet soon. The fortress begins to crumble as Satsuki flies with her friend away from the danger. They return to their base, where Sari is recovering from her bad dream. Haruto is with her and wants to spend the night looking after her, but Sari tells him she's fine and suggests he concentrate on finding and bringing Nozomi back to her senses. Soon Satsuki and Clive also return to the base and inform them that Taka has mobilized his guild, the Illuminati, to look for Nozomi. Clive tells Satsuki and Haruto to log off and get some rest, as it's late at night in Japan, while he stays in the game to look after Sari because of the time difference. He keeps Sari company, but when he leaves her alone for a while, the holes from Nozomi's snakebite begin to spread their venom much deeper into her body and mind. In the real world, Taka invites Haruto and Satsuki again. They tell him about the detectives he hired to look for Nozomi in the real world. The thing she said to him made him realize that it was his fault, but he still doesn't know exactly what he did wrong. Satsuki realizes that Taka will continue to be an idiot if she doesn't reveal everything to him, and she begins to explain what forced Nozomi to change. She says that Nozomi loves him, and when she saw him dancing with another girl, she was so shocked that it changed her whole personality. Taka finally realizes what was wrong, and since the Gnosis Guild took advantage of Nozomi's jealousy, they vow to find her and make things right. But suddenly the trio feels a sharp pain in the head, as well as dizziness. They look around and discover that the cake and drinks have run out, and the weather has changed, without them realizing it. They panic and wonder what's going on. But then a strange man appears behind them, and tells them that time is their ally right now. He thanks Haruto and his friends for helping Sari develop her abilities, and they all realize that the man is a member of the Gnosis and try to attack him. But the man manipulates time once again and disappears without a trace. Taka and Satsuki discover that time has returned to normal, and Haruto remembers what Alice told him about people being able to use their senses in real life. He gets worried about Sari and rushes home to play the game. In the game, Sari is asleep and has a dream about the past incident in which Haruto ignored her plan. Even after making a mistake the first time, he refused to follow her plan and defeated his enemy in a different way. She was furious with him for not trusting her, and said she never wanted to see his face again, and he pointed his sword at her. Her body trembles as she dreams about it, and when Haruto comes to her, she cringes at the sight of him. Her other friends also get together and tell her and Clive that a member of the Gnosis uses his senses in real life. Clive doesn't doubt them one bit, and thinks that the man who manipulated time was the leader of the Gnosis that Alice had once warned him about. Suddenly, their hideout starts to shake, and Sari tells everyone to run, but it's too late and the roof falls in on them. Somehow they manage to teleport out, and there they find a glowing tower in front of the hideout. Haruto thinks it looks like the spiritual spring of white water they cleansed 6 years ago, and they are sure that Nosum is the only one who can recreate such a thing. They infiltrate the crystal tower and climb up in search of traps and monsters. As they enter a replica of the boss's office, Sari has a flashback to the bitter memories of her fight with Haruto, because that incident happened at the white water fountain. The venom from the snake bite starts to spread even more, and she ignores Haruto when he asks if she's okay. They move on, and Sari uses her senses to warn Taka about an approaching monster attack, but nothing happened. Haruto realizes that something is bothering Sari and suggests that they should go back now, but she rejects his sympathy and rushes off to save Nosum. The rest of the team have no choice but to follow her to the boss on the top floor. Then Nosum comes out to greet them, and Sari asks her to stop her madness and come back to them. She replies that she has no ties to the team now, and once again curses Taka and Satsuki. Taka tells her that Gnosis is manipulating her negative emotions to control her, but she doesn't care. She picks up her gun and summons the army of her relatives, then turns into a mixture of monsters. Taka tells her that he will definitely save her from all this. But then the two Gnosis members appear at her side and tell him to try to free her from their clutches. Nosum orders her family to attack the Subaru members, and they all get into formation to fight. They attack the endless army of familiars, and Sari is unable to use her profitability when it is needed most. Suddenly, she hears Nosum's voice in her head, telling her that no one would believe her, even if she could use her art right now. Sari starts to lose her mind, and all the families become worried about her, and this gives the clown the chance to attack them with his 1,000 cannons, and their group ends up being separated. Nosum confronts Taka and Satsuki. She attacks them while swearing at them, and Taka blocks the attack and tells Satsuki not to fight back. He declares that he will save Nosum without hurting her, and traps her in a statue in the ground. Taka destroys the statue to open a hole, and he falls through the hole with Nosum. They reach a lower floor, and he says he wants to talk to her, but she refuses to listen and hits him. Taka doesn't dodge and keeps walking towards her, even when she attacks him once again. Nosum then gets nervous and asks why he isn't dodging, and he tells her that he doesn't deserve to dodge because he hurt her. He explains that he always loved Sari, but she never had any feelings for him. Because of this, he's become bitter and cruel, a real emo boy, and that's exactly why he can understand her emotion. He knows how bad Nosum felt after seeing him dance with Satsuki, even though they were just consoling each other after being rejected by their crushes. Now he wants to take responsibility for it. Then Taka clears up the misunderstanding, saying that there is nothing between him and Satsuki, but Nosum still attacks him, saying that it's too late for that now. Her aura of a sense of divinity destroys the familiars she throws at him, and when he touches her, Nosum's mind control is interrupted. Taka tells her that he's angry with himself for not realizing her feelings, and apologizes once again, saying that he's an idiot. Nosum begins to cry, and he embraces her, declaring his intention to bear all the punishment for the mistakes he has made. He activates his ability, destroying her transformation and removing the evil sense that possessed her body. Nosum returns to normal and is overcome with grief and regret for what she has done to her friends. But Taka hugs her, and he says they should go back to their friends. He promises to stay with her always, and Nosum relaxes for a while, until she remembers the horrible thing she did to Asahi. On the top floor, two Gnosis players wonder what Nosum is doing down there, but they don't worry too much, as she's already done her bit by corrupting Asahi's mind. They attack the remaining members of the Subaru group, surrounding Haruto and Asahi, and Clive with the magic cloth. Satsuki tries to free them, but her attack is absorbed by the magic fabric. The clown tells her to stop wasting her power and attack, but she blocks him. The two Gnosis players start taunting them, saying that Asahi's power